to set this up, you've got a stat looking into your crystal ball that if an SEC team hits this one, their season goes much better.
I believe I've got 8 contenders. I think there's only 8 teams that realistically can get to an SEC championship game this year.
Okay.
There might be surprises in first-year guys like John Summerall or maybe an Alex Golish, but I believe there are 8 teams that could actually get to Atlanta first week of December, and if they hit these marks, I think there's a good chance they're there.
Okay.
I'll start with Tennessee just because we brought it up. Faizon Brandon has got to keep the turnovers in single digits. If you look at the end of the year and he has got 9 or less interceptions, I think Tennessee's in a really good spot. Jim Knowles taking over that defense. You've got a 1,000-yard rusher coming back into Sean Bishop. Heupel's 2 best teams in 2022. I still don't know how they didn't stick the landing and get to a 14 playoff. That team was so freaking good, and Hendon Hooker only threw 2 picks the entire year. And then a team I didn't think was really good, but they could run the football and play great defense was 2024, where they get to a college football playoff, ultimately get blown out by Ohio State. But Nico was your quarterback, only 5 picks. Limit the turnovers in that offense, you win a lot of games. That would be Tennessee.
And the way they spread it out, it should be some easy reads for Faizon to help it out. You know, Byron Brown will be playing the same offense at Auburn. Ironically, a respected defensive coordinator with DJ down at Auburn like you've got now with Jim Knowles at Tennessee. You don't expect Heupel to slow it down or play towards his defense. He's going to keep playing the same style.
But if I could add to that stat, Hendon Hooker had 5 total interceptions in 2 years.
2 years is crazy.
And last year they had 10. So, I mean, you've got to cut that number down. I mean, 5 interceptions is 2 combined seasons. It's nuts. They just did not turn the ball over.
When this came down to McIntyre or Brandon, I'm sure that was what factored in the most for Heupel is who's going to protect the football. You guys give me another one of these 7. You can just call out a team.
Okay, let's go Georgia.
The Georgia Bulldogs get back to attacking the quarterback. I think if you look up and they've got 35-plus sacks, Georgia, I mean, look, they're going to be there anyway. But I think Georgia is going to be a dominant Georgia team again. If you look at last year, 20 sacks for Glenn Schumann's unit. They gave up 20 sacks offensively. That is an extremely low number. If you just go back the previous 4 years, they averaged 37 sacks per year. If you go back to the national championships in back-to-back years, those 2 seasons, they averaged 42 sacks per game. That's more than double the production they had last year. And they were still one of the best teams in college football. If they can get back to the 35-plus sacks, this will be a dominant unit.
But it's not just sacks, Brownie. Kirby Smart, when he was in Tuscaloosa with Nick Saban, and he's carried this saying over, and he said it last year a couple of times, it's not just sacks, it's pressuring the quarterback. You may not get an official sack, but if you impact him, making him throw sooner, that helps the defense. So it may not be technically a sack, but at least a pressure on the quarterback. That was off a little bit last year as well.
20, though, but in their last,
it was.
The
tremendous drop.
20 is a tremendous drop. Their previous low of the last 6 years was 37. I mean, 17 below what their previous low was. I don't know what happened there.
And that's why I believe they can get it back to that 35 number, and I think they've got the best opportunity to get the SEC back in that national championship conversation.
Okay, Brownie, pick a team.
LSU, they need to identify a 1,000-yard rusher. Like the last LSU Tiger to rush for 1,000 yards, any ideas? I'd be very surprised if you guys can get this.
Jaden Daniels? Was that who it was?
Last running back.
The last running back to do it's going to be the Fournette.
It's not Fournette.
Was it Clyde Edwards-Helaire in 2019?
Tyrion Davis-Price. It was in 2023, so it wasn't long ago. But if you look at Lane Kiffin's offenses in Oxford, and those were great offenses, you always had a 1,000-yard rusher. 3 of the last 4 years in Oxford, they had a 1,000-plus yard rusher. Last year, Kaden Durham led the LSU Tigers with 505 yards. LSU just averaged 3.6 yards per carry. You've got Harlem Berry, who was a little disappointing in his, a 5-star freshman season. But between Harlem Berry, Kaden Durham, identify who that 1,000-yard rusher is going to be to complement Sam Leavitt.
Let's go Texas.
Texas, for me, it's simple. Road Arch has got to be better. If you go back and you look at Road Arch last year, Arch Manning on the road. Ohio State, they lose 14-7. 17-30, 1 touchdown, 1 pick. Florida, they lose 29-21, 16-29, 2 touchdowns, 2 picks. Kentucky, They win the game 16-13 overtime, 12 of 27.
12 completions. That's just
Yeah, 0 touchdowns. Mississippi State, 45-38 in overtime. They win the game. All the numbers were padded in the second half with that comeback. He was 29-46, 3 touchdowns, 1 pick. And then the 35-10 loss to Georgia, 27-43, 1-1, 1 touchdown, 1 pick. Sacked 23 times last year. 18 sacks were on the road. He has got to play better on the road, which I believe he will. You talk about the pressure on Arch. I think there was more pressure last year, and it really showed on the road. But if Arch can play much better football on the road, Texas will, be really, really good.
Oh, really, really good. That's a remark. I had not thought of that, but now as I go back and think of all those games, I'm like, yeah, you're right. He was terrible on the road. The State game is the one that looks good, but as you said in the first half, he was awful against State. That was all second half yardage, so there was still an issue there playing on the road.
They really shouldn't have survived either Kentucky or State.
No, absolutely not. It's so fortunate to win both those.
Pick another contender, Brownie. We've done Tennessee, Georgia, LSU, and Texas.
Oklahoma. Lance loves him some Sooners this year. Let's see what he's got on Oklahoma.
I hate to go back to the quarterback, but I will. Mateer's got to be better. If you look at year one in the SEC, and we can say it was the thumb injury, and it probably was, but the fact of the matter, his complete game, dual threat quarterback, only 22 total touchdowns. If you go back to his final year at Wazoo, 44 touchdowns at Wazoo. Let's split the difference. If you can tell me John Mateer has 33-plus total touchdowns, and I think that is very doable with some of the skill that he's got coming back, and even adding a guy like Terrell Harris out of West Virginia, a guy like Parker Livingstone out of Texas. If he can get to that 33 number in year 2 under Ben Arbuckle, Oklahoma's going to be in a great spot.
It's more than double what he threw last year. That'd be a significant improvement. I mean, he threw 14 touchdowns last year.
I'm just talking about 33 total touchdowns.
33 total.
Split the difference. 22 last year total, 44 2 years ago at Wazoo.
Okay.
Let's get it in the middle. Let's get it around 30-plus,
All right.
and I think Oklahoma's in a great spot.
I'm not blown away by Arbuckle's play calling.
Well, some people pointed at that as where Mateer started to slip, that it was less about the thumb injury and more about Arbuckle got really predictable. There were some
best defensive minds in the country.
That's right.
Got a lot more tape on it.
The SEC team, once they got some tape on that offense, at Oklahoma and out at Washington State, they had it dialed in.
I don't disagree, but you guys will also give me a bad offensive line can make your play calls look a lot
worse. They couldn't run.
Yeah.
They were Alabama West. They just simply could not run the football.
And when we get to Alabama, I'll get to that point.
But Alabama had a better quarterback, and that's what bailed Alabama out.
Yes.
I mean, if Ty Simpson had been playing at Oklahoma, they probably are slightly better.
Well, let's do Alabama.
Alabama's got to get up a full yard of production on the ground. 3.4 yards per carry in 2025. Saban's last year, they were at 4.3. The last national championship, they averaged 5 yards a carry in 2020. Only Oklahoma and Alabama made the college football playoff with less than 4 yards a carry. The other 10 playoff teams averaged over 4.2 yards per carry. If Alabama can get it up from 3.4 to 4.4 per carry, Alabama's going to be a great spot.
Yeah, I mean,
can they do that? I don't know. That doesn't seem like a high bar, does it?
Again, your two biggest concerns on Alabama's offense are offensive line and running back. What impacts the run game the most? Offensive line and running back's two biggest concerns. So have they fixed that? Who knows? That being the offensive line.
That is a pathetic number, though, 3.4 yards per carry. But it's also amazing that Kalen DeBoer and Ty Simpson were able to get that team, and I got to give credit to us, obviously, what Alabama did defensively. But 3.4 yards per carry is pathetic.
I will say this. I think, and think is all I'm willing to say, I think Alabama has fixed the running back room. Now, there's injuries there, so, that's going to impact that, right? But I think they fixed the running back room.
To your point that your offensive line may have done a good enough job if your running backs could hit holes timely with the right matter, choosing the right running path, maybe the production would have been a little bit better.
Yeah, my point, and you're right about that, but my point actually was there was an issue at running back room, and I think they fixed it. I don't know if they fixed offensive line. We won't know until we see it. I mean, a coaching change there is what they hope is, and there's going to be some new bodies there, obviously, but some of those bodies went on to the NFL. It's not like they were bums. They're hoping the coaching changes fixed it.
Your turn to pick, Brownie.
I don't know what we're down to.
You've got A&M and Ole Miss.
Let me hear A&M.
A&M, I've said this all summer, Marcel Reed has got to take it up a letter grade. He's got to be better. Better than a 1-to-1 touchdown to interception ratio against top 25, specifically top 10s. You look at last year against top 25 teams, 6 touchdowns, 7 picks. If we focus on their 2 losses against the only 2 top 10 teams they played to end the season against both Texas And Miami, 0 touchdowns in those 2 games and 4 picks.
Yeah, I mean, if Forster had the Texas A&M schedule up right now, we could almost pick out the games that Marcel would struggle in, because he seems to struggle in the biggest games late in the year.
Yeah,
and this year the ending for Texas A&M is so hard. November Marcel has to be so much better.
Yeah, and unfortunately there is going to be an excuse if Marcel isn't. It's going to be Colin Klein is taking over Kansas State, and you've got a new, and Holman Wiggins, a new offensive coordinator, taking over and calling the plays for the Aggies. But Marcel Reed, there's no excuse. Like Marcel Reed, he had the reins last year. They had a fantastic regular season. They got to a college football playoff. They hosted a game, but he was awful in both of those games against Texas and Miami. And he's got to be better in those spots.
He couldn't push the ball down the field either late. I mean, his yards per attempt against Texas and Miami were 5.6 and 6.1.
Awful.
And then the last one is Ole Miss.
So Ole Miss was the number 2 overall offense in college football in 2025. Trinidad Chambliss didn't start the first couple of games, but in 13 starts, he had almost 4,500 total yards. I think if he can just get from start to finish back to around that 4,500 total yard mark, doesn't have that sophomore slump, so to speak, Ole Miss is going to be right there back in the mix.
One of the biggest storylines in college football I don't think anybody's talking about is the loss of coordinators at some contenders. Oregon lost both of theirs.
That's right.
Ohio State lost their offensive coordinator. Ole Miss lost their play caller, man. And that's a big storyline for me. Is it Joe Judge that's going to call play as part of the process?
That's what everybody assumes. But, in a sense, they lost their defensive coordinator, too. I mean, I know he's still on the staff, but he's the head coach now.
That's right.
And I don't know that Pete Golding's going to call the defensive signals. So, I mean, in a sense, they lost both coordinators. Even though he's still there, he's doing something different.
See, I like Georgia. They got both their coordinators with Kirby. I like Alabama. They still got their coordinators.
But,
there's some of these we've lost some key parts. So what can they do?
It eventually caught up with Clemson, but we saw year in, year out, Dabo started to lose those coordinators. You saw it with Alabama at Nick Saban. And, some of these programs can just survive. Like, I just assume that Oregon's going to be fine without both Tosh Lapoy going to Cal now and Will Stein going to Kentucky. But, I mean, it is a point to look at. And I do think this Ole Miss offense, I mean, the great news is you got Kejuan Lacey and Trinidad Chambliss back, but it is going to – the identity seems so different.
Yeah, there is a nuance to calling plays. That's crystal ball stats from Lance. Great job there on 8 key stats with 8 contenders that could make them national champion or conference championship contenders.